Hi, and welcome to our podcast. It's great to have you here. Actually, I just noticed that, Ivar, you are from Malmö. I have a friend who lives there. How is it right now?
Yeah, it's nice. We have nice spring weather. It's pretty sunny outside, and yeah, we're enjoying it.
Is your market void of plastic bags now? I heard this was a recent issue.
So yeah, no, they introduced some tax on plastic bags. So yeah, we're not buying them anymore.
All right, awesome. Then let's get back to the subject at hand. Can I ask Dmitry to introduce our speakers in greater detail?
Yes, sure. So first of all, I will say thanks for everybody who joined this talk. This talk is going to be about Jakarta EE and what is beyond. It means Jakarta 10 and what else is waiting for us. And the speakers are Ivar Grimstad, and Ivar is developers advocate at the CLIS Foundation, and Tanja Obradović, and Tanja is product manager of Jakarta EE project. Let's get started.
Let's go.
Well, let's start with thank you so much for inviting us. I will take the liberty and actually say you probably saved the last talk as the best one.
No pressure.
No pressure. Yeah. So thank you very much, and it's an honor to be here. Ivar.
Yeah, thank you very much. And as we're so goodly introduced, I think we'll just dive directly into it. So what we're talking about today is first to give you some background about Jakarta EE and what it is. Then we will talk about Jakarta EE 9 and touch upon what's coming after Jakarta EE 9. And so you all know Jakarta EE. That's our nice logo here. And I actually have a question for you. If you're listening to this, I can't read this. I've been told it's said, are you using Jakarta EE today? And I don't know, Tanja, do you read or speak Russian?
Well, I actually had to look it up and actually do translation to English. I should be able to understand something. So I could potentially try to butcher this sentence and say, "We используйте Jakarta EE Segodi." Probably doesn't make any sense. But no, anyways.
To me,
it's quite close. It's quite close, yeah.
I don't know if there's a speaker room has a polling feature, or if you can answer this question, yes or no. But please just indicate in the chat and say, yes, I'm using Jakarta EE if you're doing it, so we can have some kind of picture of how widely it's used. So let's go on. And as you probably remember, it used to be called Java EE, and it was governed by the Java community process at Oracle. And in 2017, or was it 16, around there?
Apologies to interrupt you.
Yes.
There is a problem. I think your slides are not being switched, at least on our side. So, okay. Now they are. Okay.
There you go.
Please go on.
Thank you. So so it used to be Java EE under the Java community process with Oracle, governed by Oracle there. And in 2016 or 17, Oracle decided it was time to let other people contribute as well and move it over to an open source foundation. And Eclipse Foundation was selected. And all the technologies, the specifications, the test suites, and the implementations were donated to the open source. And we started the EE4J projects. And from the EE4J projects, we produced the Jakarta EE specifications. And our webpage is jakarta.ee. It's so simple to remember that it's almost embarrassing to put it on a slide. But if you take anything from this talk, you should remember jakarta.ee. just write it into the browser and bookmark it. Or if you don't bookmark it, it's so easy to remember, Jakarta.ee. And Jakarta EE is all about specifications and what we call open specifications. And Tanja, why don't you take us through a little bit what we mean by open specifications?
Sounds good. So Jakarta EE as a successor of Java EE is a set of specifications that absolutely needed to define its own specification process. So previously in Java EE world, the specifications were developed under the JCP, as Ivar was mentioning, and I'm sure Dmitry is very, very familiar with JCP. But with the move to Eclipse Foundation, there was the Eclipse Foundation specification process that was developed and established for development generically of specifications under Eclipse Foundation. But then that process was further refined and specialized to address the needs of Jakarta EE. So what is exactly this process? So the process, you will see slides a little bit later on, and you can get familiar with it on the web. But the key points of this specification process is that we're actually encouraging to do the code first approach, which means let's see if something is working and how well it works, and it proves itself that it's worthy of a standard or a specification, and that is the code first approach. It is a completely collaborative process, comparing to the JCP, which was also collaborative, but this is, I would say, even more collaborative, meaning there are no experts or leads in terms of making decisions. There is a project lead that is kind of leading communication within the project team, but the collaboration is really equal playing field, and everyone who is involved in the project can equally collaborate. Then all the documents and all the artifacts are completely open. TCKs are completely open source. That seems to be extremely exciting for developers, because this time around they can see what's in the tests, and they can provide input, create challenges, and understand them a little bit better. We moved away from the reference implementations, and now we're welcoming multiple products to be used as compatible implementations. And then on top of everything, it is self-certification as a process that is providing the final compatibility, provides compatibility proof. It is completely free. Everyone can actually do self-certification. But in the case you want to be showcased and you want to have a closer involvement with the Jakarta EE, then you can choose to pay for it and be involved and do certification from that perspective. So those are the key points. And Ivar, if you want to show us the graph that was actually leading us to the process, if you can see this graph, and if you can, for a moment, neglect those purplish boxes that are kind of showing the reviews that are taking place during the life cycle of the specification, you can actually see that development process is you know, in some level, just a regular development process for any software that we're doing, right? What is different in this case is that we are having actually involvement of the specification committee that is dedicated to overlooking the process of the specification development. So at the time of the proposal or creation, of the specification, there is a creation review that specification committee is providing their input. Then we enter the development phase. The milestones are being produced. Occasionally, progress review is also required by the specification committee. And finally, once we're ready to produce a version, we have the final release review, and after that, we're producing ratified final specification. If we're doing a new version of the specification, there is no need to go to the creation process. And as you will see, for a lot of specifications, we're actually doing the plan review for the next release of the specification. So let's just quickly then see what exactly is a specification. I'm wondering if you are wondering about what exactly is comprising a specification. So as mentioned, I think just briefly, there is a specification document that explains the specification. There are APIs. And finally, the TCKs that are used to test those APIs. And once those three artifacts are created, then we can use the compatible implementation to verify that our implementation of the specification is actually working as we intend. And that actually produces the final specification that is going to be used further.
And we do have a lot of specifications in Jakarta EE. Yeah. So we have specifications for almost any use case you can think of. And if you're creating REST interfaces or web UIs or any other things, and for database access and security, for batches, messaging, even sending mail, and all of this is tied together nicely in a cohesive platform, so it plays very nicely together everything, and you don't really have to think about all the different dependencies in your application. So, for example, for a Spring project, you would have to define all these to be integrated into your application somehow. Here, they're all there for you. And to make it even simpler, we've grouped them into two kind of layers. You have the web profile, which is a little bit lighter profile grouping of specifications that are targeting web applications. And then you have the full platform that is all of the specifications.
And what are those gray boxes, Ivar?
Yeah, that's the sort of a little bit older specifications. They aren't developing very much further. They are there. They're stable technologies. They do their job, and I don't think there will be very much innovations going on there. I mean, SOAP is SOAP. It's not that much coming from that kind that direction anymore. So that's the things we're living as is. You can still use it. And for all of these specifications, we have compatible implementations, and we have a lot of them. And I think this is pretty accurate, up-to-date site.
Yeah, I checked. We have 14 different vendors right now, and Ivar, we have to brag a little bit. Like we're over the moon with adoption of the Jakarta EE, especially version 8. Would you say so?
Yeah, it's fantastic, and as you'll see later, we also have a couple that implements the newer specification, the Jakarta EE9, which hasn't been out for very long. But these are all Jakarta EE8 compatible. So let's talk about 9. That's the latest, most recent version of Jakarta EE. And as you see, we have 3 focus areas, or had 3 focus areas for Jakarta EE9. And how would you define the lower entry barriers, Tanja?
So actually, this is quite an important release for Jakarta EE, and lowering entry barriers for new vendors to enter the market is really important. So what we want to do is actually create a platform that is getting rid of the old or deprecated specifications, and invite other vendors to enter the market and do implementation of the specifications. So that is the primary goal of this pillar. Then if you want to look at the other one, it is a platform for innovation. So what we are actually trying to establish here is the make sure that this is a stable base version that will enable others to use this stable platform for further innovation and make it more cloud friendly, or take a direction, any other direction that the community, Jakarta EE community, is interested to take. So with those two, actually, and especially having it as a platform for innovation, we wanted to make it also easy to migrate for others who are already use this technology to migrate to Jakarta EE. And with that, what we mean is that this is the great time for everyone who is using Java EE and have not moved necessarily to Jakarta EE8. This is the version that will be the easiest to migrate to. And the reason why is it doesn't introduce a lot of new features, but it has one major characteristic, and that is that we needed to change the namespace. So we're moving from javax namespace to Jakarta namespace. So Ivar, do you want to take it a little bit further and even show how we deal with this change?
Yeah, what is better than showing some code? And first of all, I want to say it's available now. You can download a Jakarta EE9 compatible implementation. Just go to jakarta.de, remember that webpage, and then you can click to compatible download, or just click on this link when you get the slides, and they should be available in the conference program, so you can get it from there. And so compatibly download, you can go there and you can download these 3 different are currently available for Jakarta EE9. You have Glassfish and Open Liberty and Wildfly. And there are more coming as we speak. So just go to jakarta.de/compatibility and you can find everything there. And so this namespace thing then, what does it really mean? What do I have to do? And as I said, let's go and look at some demo. And what I'm going to do now is to take one application that is running on Glassfish 5 on Jakarta EE8. It's a pretty simple application. It just says a hello message from Duke. And then I'm going to convert it to a Jakarta EE9 version of it by doing the namespace change. and run it on Glassfish 6. And as I said, it is a very simple application. It just says, howdy Jakarta EE9. But we wouldn't be developers or engineers if we didn't complicate things. So I've done this the correct way. And of course, to print hello world, you would need EJBs or enterprise beans, and you need a database. Of course, everybody needs a database. And I have a repository layer, and I have my REST layer to produce the JSON output. And I even threw in a CDI extension to print a log message, so Duke can say hi there to the sysadmins. So all of this is, of course, absolutely necessary to print hello world. And it also shows all the layers of an application that you would have to touch in order to do the namespace change. So let's go and look at the code. And the application is complete, Duke. At the end, I'll show you some the links to the GitHub where you can get it. You can try it out. There's a tutorial there to go through all the steps I'm going through here. But I'll go through it here for you. And first of all, I'll just go through the code, and then I'll run it, and then I'll do the change. So let's start with the POM and just verify that, yes, it is a Jakarta EE 8. And as you see, comparable to, for example, a Spring project, there aren't a lot of dependencies. It's actually only this one, and it's provided for me. And that's because I'm running it on a application server that implements all these APIs for me. And let's go through and look at the code. The hello resource is the resource that is producing the JSON for me. And you can see I'm producing a media type JSON here, and it's returning a hello message, which is it's finding using the Duke service, which is an EJB. So in the Duke service class, you can see I'm injecting it's a stateless enterprise bean. It's using this Duke's repository class to find all of them, and then I'm just taking the first. And that's because I'm lazy. As all developers, we're just lazy. So I'm just finding everything and taking the first one. I could do it any other way, but this is how it works for me here. And if I don't find any, I'll just write hi and undefined. And let's look at the repository. That is a it has the dependent CDI scope, so it inherits the scope from the bean that calls it. And I'm injecting my persistence context, the entity manager here, and I'm using criteria language to select everything from my database. And the object it returns is the Duke's greeting class. That's my entity. It's in the greetings table. It has a generated ID, as you can see, and it has a message and an email field. And that's all there is to it. Then I also wire everything together with this extreme complex configuration here, where I'm saying that I have an empty application path, and it's a Jakarta REST application. Then you also maybe noticed this annotation where I had @Dukes and it's saying hi there. So I've defined this custom annotation here. That is just a simple annotation with a message field. And I'm using this CDI extension. It implements the CDI extension to just log that, hey, I found this annotation when I started up, and the message from Duke is this. So that's my entire application. Let's go and run it in Glassfish 5. And I have the server running here. And if I do deploy it, and we can look at the log file here from Glassfish when it picks it up. So it's compiling there, and you can see something is happening here. And you can say, here is the message. It says Duke's message is hi there. So the CDI extension works. And let's go and see if the application works as well. So this server is running on port 8082. It's the Glassfish 5, and it's called Completing. Hello, and I'll just beef this up in there and maybe make it a little bigger so you can see it says howdy Jakarta EE8. So the application works. So let's go ahead and do the transformation to Jakarta EE9. And the first thing I have to do then is to go into the POM file and change my dependency from 8 to 9. And the IDE will help me here. You can see I have a release candidate in my cache as well. There is actually a version 9.1 out now, so you can use 9.1 if you want to. But I'm using 9 here. Then I'll just tell my IDE here to reload this project for me. And now I can go into the classes that I showed you previously. And you should be able to see that when the Maven scanning has been done here, that things are going to happen. And you can see it doesn't compile anymore. And that's because 9 has moved to the Jakarta namespace. So what I have to do is to change this to the Jakarta namespace. And the IDE will mostly help you here. So I recommend use the IDE wherever you can. And you can see some of them have more alternatives, so you have to help it a little. But it's basically to go and replace all the javax imports. And just make sure that you choose the correct one. And this is the ease of migration that Tanja was talking about. It's basically the first element there that we're changing. Everything else is kept the way it was to make it easier to do this transformation. Because if you had to change everything, then it would be, if we have moved packages around, it would be much harder. So it is kind of a tedious work. And you may think that, yeah, let's just automate this or do it search and replace from command line. And yes, you can do that, but you have to be a little careful so you don't replace too much. There are still javax classes out there, like javax transaction, for example, and some SQL classes. So you cannot change everything. So you have to be a little careful if you do it to kind of script it a little bit too hard. So and you can see there are some classes where we have duplications in the name. So just choose the correct one. So now I've done all the imports, and you can see my project compiles. And you should think maybe that I'm done now. But if we were so lucky, so I have some more things here. You notice the CDI extension I had. That was the Dukes extension. That one is in a bootstrap file called javax enterprise inject. And this file has to be changed as well. So you have to actually rename the file name. So the contents of the, oh, sorry. All right, there we go. So, so the content of the file is not changing, but you have to rename the file. Then another thing we changed are the XML namespaces. So we're not using the jcp.org namespace anymore. So if you're, not all application servers actually require that you use namespaces here, and quite frankly, you could go without a namespace. But if you have the namespace in your XMLs, you need to fix them. And what we change it to is also to make it easy, it's jakarta.ee. And we haven't changed anything behind that. So the only thing you have to change is the jcp.org with jakarta.ee. And we also took the opportunity here to go from HTTP to HTTPS. So it's jakarta.ee. And you can see the easy migration is here that the we didn't change the stuff after this. Jakarta.ee. And also what we've done is always to use the version in the file name for the schema. So for persistence, Jakarta persistence is 3.0. And now you can see my IDE, since I'm using namespace, actually says to me that, hey, you're not using the correct version here. So you can have the validation in the IDE when you use the schemas, and that's the benefit of doing it. But we're not done yet, because you can also see here that I have some properties in my my persistent XML that are generating the database content for me. So these properties need to be changed as well. And you can see here, since I'm using the schema, I'm actually getting code completion in the XML file for it. So now I've done all the changes, and I should be able to run it in Glassface 6. So let's go here and add this artifact to the Glassface 6 and run it there. Let's go and deploy it. And you can see it's deploying here. And if we're lucky, it should pick up the CDI extension and print hi there in the log as well. So it's doing this compilation now. And here we go. So let's see. It's doing its deployment, and you can see it's using the persistence 3.0, and it's registering the EJPs. And here we can see the CDI extension says hi there, so it works. And also, of course, we need to check it in the browser and go and say in Glassface 6, does it work? And it does. But as you can see, the message is Jakarta EE8, and that's wrong. So there is actually one more place that you may have to change your code, and that is if you have some dynamic properties in your application. You can maybe you dynamically build some properties, or you have some data in the database. Then that is also something you need to change. If you're concatenating strings to get a class name and then doing some reflection on it, that's somewhere you have to change, and they can be hard to find. In my case, it's pretty easy. Let's see if this one finds it. There we go. So you can see it says how the Jakarta EE8. Let's change that to 9. Save it and submit it to the database. And now the application should actually do Jakarta EE9. So that's how you do it. It's a series of very simple steps. It's not that complicated. It just has to be done. And what I did here was first to update the Jakarta EE version in the POM. Then I fixed all the imports. I fixed the XML schema namespaces. And I fixed the properties that were prefixed with javax. And then I renamed the bootstrapping file, the CDA extension. And then I verified with the database that everything was correct there. And here is the link to the Jakarta EE Duke application on GitHub. There's you can find all these steps described there, and how you can do the exact same thing as I did here.
So Ivar, even though this is done for this very small application, but this is the same principle that you would get, you would use for any other big enterprise application. So the number of steps would be the same, right?
Yes, they will. And of course, as you kind of get used to it, you would do more bulk changes and maybe run it on a project level and do changes. So I transferred a couple of applications, and it's not that hard. It's basically just you have to do it and then run the test and verify it. So it is work, but it's not very. It's tedious work, can be, but it's not very hard. But there's basically these steps you have to do for any enterprise application. But there are actually some tools out there that can help you on the way, at least if you want to test if it runs, or if you have some source code that you don't have the code base to, and you want to run it on newer platforms anyway. And I'll show two of these tools here. One of them is the Eclipse Transformer, and the other one is Apache Tomcat migration tool. And to test this, I have an application here, which I've called Transformer Duke. It's exactly the same application as I had with the Complete Duke that I just showed. So I won't go through all the code here. But what I will show is that you can see the import statements are javax. The POM file says it's Jakarta EE8, and the bootstrapping file is called javax enterprise, and the persistence file have the javax properties. So it's exactly the same application that I had. What I have done is remove the schema information, because none of the transformers actually does the schema transformation for you. So if you have schema versions, the transformer won't help you. So that's just something that you need to be aware of. And what I've done is that I've downloaded the I think I have another terminal here. I've downloaded the transformer to, let me see here. You can download it from their web pages, the links I had in the slides. And I have it here, the Tomcat migration tool comes with a migrate shell script that you can use, and if you're running on other platforms, you don't have to use the migration the shell script. You can use the jar file directly. So it's the migration tool, Jakarta EE migration jar here you can use to run directly. And the Eclipse transformer is also has some libraries with it. So it is kind of a zip file you just unzip on your computer and you can run it. The transformer, the Eclipse transformer, can actually be run as a Maven plugin as well. And I put it in here first, but then I thought about it, and well, if you have the access to the source code and want to do the transforming, well, then you can use Maven, but why not just do the migration yourself? It's not that hard, as you saw. But if you just want to test or compile to two different versions and test them on two runtimes, then it makes sense to have this transformer Maven plugin here. But I won't use that one here. What I'll use is the command line tooling. So I have the transformer Duke created to a WAR file. It's on Jakarta EE8, and it's the exact same application as I had the Complete Duke. So let's transform this one, and let's use the Eclipse tooling first. Let's see if I have the command line here. Yeah. So what I'm saying here is I'm saying java-jar, then I'm saying the Eclipse transformer jar, and I'm saying do the transformer Duke war and transform it to transformer Duke eclipse.war. So that's how easy it is to use. You can put in all sorts of, I have to go to the target. I have to go, I can use all sort of property files to configure this transformation, but this is kind of the default thing. So here you can see I got a transformer Duke Eclipse war. And I'll go and look at this file in a minute, but first I'll just do the Tomcat transformation as well. And this one had the, let me see, okay, let me just go there and write the downloads. This one had the shell script. You can actually download it as a Ubuntu package as well. So if you're using Linux, you can just write Java to Jakarta EE or in command line. It installs in through the Ubuntu package manager as well. But here I'll run this one, then migrate to SH. And this one has two profiles. The default is the Tomcat profile. But in order to get all the Jakarta EE stuff, I'm running the EE profile. And then I have the input file, which is the transformer Duke war. And on the output file will be transformer Duke Tomcat war. So this one also produces a jar for me here. So you can see here I have the transformer Duke. That's Maven has the classes in here. So I'll just unzip this one here. There you go. And I'll unzip that was the Eclipse, wasn't it? Yeah. And then the Tomcat. Just extract it. There you go. And then go into IntelliJ here and have a look at these files. So you can see the transformer Duke, the original, has the if I go into the Duke's greeting class, you can see it has the javax. That's really original. This is Jakarta EE8. You can see the bootstrapping file is called javax, and the persistent XML has the javax properties. That was the original. So let's look at how the Eclipse transformer did this. Let's go in and look at the Duke's greeting class, and here you can see this one has been transformed to the Jakarta namespace. And the bootstrapping file has been renamed to Jakarta. In the persistence file, well, it didn't take the properties. So here is probably something with my configuration, or this is something they have missed so far. But in my case, these properties are stuff that are generated in the table for me. So as long as the table is there, it will work. Let's look at the Tomcat tooling. And here also the greeting has the Jakarta, so it does the namespace change. It does the rename of the bootstrapping file, and then the persistence file. This one actually does the transformation of the properties. So by default, just the stuff you download and run it, the Tomcat is actually a little bit more powerful than the Eclipse currently, but they're both snapshots. So I encourage you to try them out and help them out if you discover anything. But both these will run perfectly fine in GlassFish 6. I'm not sure how we are on time, or maybe we should go back to the slides and look at how we're going. So do try out these tools. They're helping you a lot if you just want to test your application. Be aware that the quirks here and there, that it won't help you with everything. It won't help you with the data in a database, for example. So that was Jakarta EE 9, and we have more. We have 9.1, and yeah. So and 9.1, that's Java SE 11 support, and we don't add anything more there. We just make sure that it's possible to run on Java 11, and we're at where the red dot is right now. And we will make the artifacts available on May 14th. That is if we can get to the release review by April 30th, which is the plan. And then on May 25th, there will be some marketing splash around it. So it's only a month away, then you'll have 9.1 available. And Glassfish 6.1 release candidate is available to download as of yesterday. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
That's
and I think,
cool.
do you want to reveal that we're hoping that this is going to be the first release that is very, very shortly or around the time of the release, we will have multiple compatible implementations. So from that perspective, that is really good to see the uptake.
Yeah. So let's.
We have more beyond 9.
Now we're going beyond 9, and beyond 9. That's where I mean, it's been interesting so far, but this is probably where it gets really interesting. And one thing we're working on is a new profile. You remember the web profile and the full platform? We're also talking now about a core profile. We just put it up for a review at the specification committee, and we haven't started talking about what it will contain, but the goal is to target smaller runtimes that are suitable for microservices, and also maybe better enabled to compile to native images for smaller like Quarkus like or GraalVM to compile to native. And we also, today is actually our, we wanted to have the plans in for the different specifications, and they were rippling in all of yesterday and all of day, and the latest, just a couple of hours ago, the Jakarta Pages, standard tag libraries, Jakarta Pages, WebSocket, and Servlet came in. So Servlet are actually planning on pretty cool stuff and big changes there. And there are lots of other specifications that are planning on doing simplifications. They're planning on doing things better suited for cloud. There, some of them are deprecating things that they had planned to do for a long time, so slimming down a little bit. And also CDI alignment is something that is a common theme all over them. So this is pretty amazing. I think there are 17 of them here, or if I'm not wrong. But so, and you can see there are a couple of major releases and a couple of minor releases. And this is pretty exciting to read through all of these and see what they contain. That brings us into Jakarta EE 10, because when we have all these specifications wanting to do things, we should group them together somehow. And getting Jakarta EE 10 with all of these changes in, and it's kind of slimming down for the clouds is some buzzword I came up with yesterday for a talk there, and we had the community call, and it was pointed out that, but they're adding stuff, like security is planning to add stuff, support for OAuth and OpenID Connect, but at the same time they're slimming down for the cloud to make it possible for smaller runtimes like the core profile. So I think Jakarta EE 10 is starting to look pretty good. What do you think, Tanja?
Oh, I'm super excited. I think we were all kind of looking towards submitting those plans from the project teams, and you're always kind of a little bit worried what's coming up. But people are, or teams rather, are responding well, and we're super excited to see that number of plans being submitted. So looks very good.
And it's pretty typical. We kind of asked for these plans like 3 months ago, but everybody waits until the last day to come with their plans. But yeah, that's what the date is for.
Yeah, there is nothing like deadline.
no. And that kind of also brings us into release cadence, because it's been a lot of talk, and release cadence is something that a lot of others have been doing for a lot of time, like Ubuntu, for example. It's been doing its half-yearly releases for I don't know how long time now, and there are lots of others. Java SE, for example, since Java 9, it's been doing 6 months release cadence. So we're actually, next version will be Java 17, and who would have thought that like 5 years ago? And so establishing some sort of release cadence so we can rely on when the next version of Jakarta EE coming out would be awesome. Currently, we're not entirely there, but if you look at it, we did Jakarta E8 last year, Jakarta E9, or 2 years ago, Jakarta E9 last year, so approximately 1 year between them. And if we can get out Jakarta E10 this year, then we have de facto established a release cadence in 1 year. And that is what the community wants. And that would be awesome if we can manage to pull that off. But in order to do that, we need to do some decoupling of the TCK and the test suites, because some of them are grouped a little bit too tightly together. So we have to rip them apart, but not in a way that prevents them from being put together again, because we need to test the entire platform, and we need to know that we don't break anything, because our promise is backward compatibility. So the test suite is very important, so we have to do this the right way, and this is a hard task, and this is where we are going to need a lot of help and clever people to think out how to do it. Some alignment to the Java SE versions. And I'm not saying we should go on a 6-month release cadence, or that Jakarta EE 17 should come out this year. I'm saying that would be nice to have some sort of predictability, so we know that when the next major version of Java Jakarta EE comes out, it's kind of gives itself which Java SE version it will be supporting. So we don't have to have these .1 releases half a year after to accommodate the new Java SE version. That's what we got. Do you want to sum it up, Tanja?
Okay, sure. I think you deserve a break after all this demos and talks. So what is in our summary? So we want to say we are ready with the Jakarta EE 9 and 9.1 as well. We do have those 3 major goals for this release, and we're happy that we have accomplished it. So lower the entry barriers for new vendors to enter the field, establish the base platform for innovation, and I think that is also being proven now with all these plans coming along that we have accomplished that. And then we want everyone who is on previous versions to have really a version that will enable them to easily migrate to Jakarta E9. And then going forward, we will be able to actually use the innovative new features and enhance our enterprise applications. So, additionally, in a summary, Jakarta EE is live and well, and as we're seeing, thriving. And I do want to invite you once again, as Ivar pointed out, please do bookmark jakarta.ee as a website. Do follow our blogs, Jakarta-related blogs. Ivar is every week very diligently producing the hashtag blogs, providing the weekly input on what's going on with Jakarta. And I myself am doing the monthly blogs. So, you can definitely get the information on or news about Jakarta EE. and do get in touch. We need to, and we want to hear from you. And we will be happy to see more people participating in Jakarta EE.
And we want to hear what you think, what you want to see by taking the Jakarta EE developer survey. And the link is here. It will be available in the slides afterwards. Or take up your phone right now and use this QR code to get directly to the survey.
Yeah. And we need your input. Like it's something that we really look forward to, and we need to know where you are and where would you like to go from here. Yeah. And I think our last slide is a thank you slide. Oh, yeah. There you go. Thanks so much for listening. Please ask us a lot of questions and get in touch.
I'll answer the easy ones and Tanja will do the difficult ones.
Oh, no. Actually, Dmitry is an expert here. He knows everything. We can turn the questions, difficult questions to Dmitry, actually.
Yeah, actually, we are in an easy situation today. Basically, there are no questions in the chat, right? So
my goodness!
Right, but actually, we can, I think, freely talk about some stuff, and I have some questions too, folks, right? So, but before asking questions, the Eclipse Foundation about Jakarta EE, I know that Complicated goes to Ivar, is it?
I think so.
Or Complicated goes to Tanja. Basically, talking about Jakarta EE 10, right? So, from my perspective, I was participating in Jakarta since then they moved Java EE stuff to Eclipse Foundation. So for quite a long time. And for me, that next release, Jakarta 10, it looks like a first real release of Jakarta EE, right? Because everything was done before. It was a kind of a proven of concept that we moved everything fine, and it actually works. It was Jakarta EE 8. And after that, we proved that the process kind of works and we can follow the process. And we've done some package renaming to test the process, but not really new features, right? It was Jakarta EE 9, right? And this 10 release, which is coming, we don't know when yet, right? Is going to be actually the first one which has new features. And as Ivar demonstrated, there's going to be a lot of new features, right? So this is going to be first a real release of Jakarta platform with new features, and I think they are all quite excited about it, right? But my question is not about that. So Eclipse Foundation, right? I know that Eclipse Foundation is not really well known in Russia, right? What can you just quickly explain what Eclipse Foundation is doing, right? And there are some other foundations, for instance, like Apache or Linux Foundation. What's the key point of Eclipse Foundation? Why Eclipse Foundation is better from your perspective?
Well, we can both answer that. So I know for two of us, Eclipse Foundation is the best. But maybe for some other people, it is very important to actually point out that Eclipse Foundation is the one that is, of course, having the thriving developer community. It solves very complex problems. It is now with projects that are related to Java, de facto the foundation for Java open source projects. You may be aware of the project that recently, or I would rather say working group that recently started with Adoptium, and then MicroProfile that is addressing microservices, and Jakarta EE. So it is kind of for this group that is focused on maybe Java, very important to point out. It has a strong business development and marketing services. It has processes and guidance and the governance mechanism that is also very important. And the governance is actually very important to point out. It's multi-vendor and vendor-neutral governance model. And then, of course, provides a lot of IP and licensing services. So all of these collectively are the differentiating factor for Eclipse Foundation. We can talk a little bit more about the working group model and the collaboration that is happening there. But Ivar, what else would you point out for the Eclipse Foundation?
I think you're pointing on a lot of things, and to be honest, most of that you're mentioning is also available in Apache Software Foundation. So for me, I think the main differentiator between, for example, Eclipse Foundation and Apache Foundation is what you mentioned about the working groups. And the working groups are a way of corporations or companies to come together on a vendor-neutral playing field and collaborate on technologies, like in Jakarta EE and like they're doing with Adoptium and with Microprofile and others. So it's the vendor neutrality, and you can come together and actually fund projects together, and we have the model ready for it.
So what's basically go ahead.
Talking about vendor neutrality, it's quite an interesting topic. So how do you think these vendor neutrality concepts changed enterprise Java?
I think in historically under the JCP, which has worked excellent in the way it was intended to be, where you had all these companies coming together and collaborating on various Java EE versions up until Java EE 8. But there were some issues about the licensing model and who owned the rights to give away the compatibility stamp. So you didn't get the full power of all the members that you could have. By moving it out to a foundation like Eclipse Foundation, where there is none of the single vendors that kind of owns the right to give the stamp away. It's more likely that more of these other corporations will collaborate and produce code in there. That said, the JCP model has worked very well for Java SE, and it still does. So yeah.
So all vendors are equal. So there is no veto right? And the neutrality is achieved, for instance, for me, also in compatible implementations, right? Because we don't have a concept of RI, reference implementation, which was present in enterprise Java, right? So basically, this is the implementation which was tested using for testing the spec, right? Which makes it a little bit above others, right? So we don't have this concept anymore, right? Which plays really well for other implementations, right? This is one of the parts of vendor neutrality, and I think this is actually great. Let's just teach a topic. You started to talk about some projects which are a part of Eclipse Foundation currently. Do you know any statistics? Do you know any information about how many projects are in Eclipse Foundations now, and what are the biggest and the most popular ones?
So we have, I would say, close to 380 projects or around that number. A lot of them are extremely popular, but not to single out necessarily the projects. What I do want to say that we're grouping them, let's say, in a couple of pillars. Definitely one of them is where Jakarta EE belongs, which is cloud native or Java bucket that right now assumes three big working groups, which is Jakarta EE, Microprofile, and Adoptium, but there are other related projects for Java. Then we would have, I would point out IoT and Edge grouping. There are a lot of thriving projects in that area. Automotive has another, almost the entire industry covering with the various projects related to automotive industry. And then I'm sure everyone is familiar with Eclipse IDE. So there is a bucket of tools where Eclipse IDE is probably the best known, but it's definitely not the only one. Let's just mention Eclipse J, for example. So that is, we have tons of projects, 4 major focus areas, and other ones that are emerging. So, you know, we're having our pulse on AI and some other stuff, but there are a lot of technologies that are being developed under Eclipse Foundation.
Yeah, these are well-known, famous projects, right? So I think everybody know about that, and the number 3,000 plus is really impressive. Yeah, that's quite cool. But still, if I'm an independent developer, or if I'm a company or group of developers, and we have some interesting project, and we're developing it. So what's the reasons for us to move our project to the Eclipse Foundation instead of just hosting it as an open source project on GitHub, for instance?
Yeah,
what's the advantages?
Yeah, I can take that one. And,
go ahead.
So I feel very much because I've done these open source projects on my own on GitHub, and we, or me at least, our developers are kind of naive when it comes to things that are not code related. So when it comes to a license or some patent rights or some IP policy, we don't know about it, and we don't want to know about it. We just want to code, produce the code, and produce something out there, and we don't think about where did it actually come from? Did somebody copy this from Stack Overflow, or what is this code? Who has written it, and whose fault is it if it doesn't work? So what an open source foundation like Eclipse gives you is all of this. So it takes care of that you don't drag in dependencies that have security vulnerabilities. They have an infrastructure around it to help you set up so things are secure, and check the IP of that the people contributing to your code actually are allowed to do it by having these contributor agreements. So all these things around that developers usually don't want to think about. That's what Eclipse Foundation gives you.
And it's everything for free.
Yes.
Yeah. So
absolutely.
This is absolutely amazing, right? That me, for instance, as a company, can have all these advantages, right, for free, right? And Eclipse Foundation provides it. That's absolutely perfect. All right, I think that's enough about Eclipse Foundation. So shall we jump to Jakarta EE? There is another standardization initiative, right? It's I'm talking about Microprofile, and it's also a part of the Eclipse Foundation.
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit how Microprofile relates, cooperates with the Jakarta EE? And are there any plans to make this cooperation even more tight?
So let me start, and then Ivar, you jump in. Microprofile is a fabulous working group under Eclipse Foundation as well. It just started to be actually a working group. For the longest time, it was just a project, one of the projects in the Eclipse Foundation, and it started based on the market needs, right? So people wanted to make sure that microservices are addressed and standardization around that is being created. So it kind of had a little different or quite different life cycle than Jakarta EE, and it needed its own space. More and more Microprofile and Jakarta EE are actually collaborating and coexisting and complement each other. There is a strong connection between those two communities or working groups. And yeah, they're absolutely working together to figure out how they can address the market needs together, like coexisting. Ivar, would you add anything else at this point?
I think you covered it pretty well. The thing that is probably most discussed currently is that Microprofile adds some functionality on top of a couple of Jakarta EE technologies. And some of the technologies that Microprofile are offering are things that would fit nicely within Jakarta EE. So what we're discussing is, where should we evolve these technologies? Should we move things between these working groups? Should we move a specification from Microprofile over to Jakarta EE, for example? And what should happen with it then? Should we then change the namespace from Microprofile to Jakarta EE, or should we keep the Microprofile one? Or how should we do this? And these discussions are what's happening right now.
All right.
How are we
Thank
going
you
to
so
do
much.
this? Because we haven't really settled on it.
Then may I suggest to move on this discussion to the discussion zone, because we are running out of time for this slot, and there is a great opportunity to chat about it without the cameras flashing and so on. So thank you so much. It's been a great talk. I'm really excited to see Jakarta EE finally supporting Java 11, because to me it was one of the main entry barriers, and I guess to many others as well. So I hope it moves on with the great release cadence and so on. Thank you, and have a great discussion.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Gleb.
Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you.